Thank God His mercies are renewed every morning that we are not consumed. He knows His children are going to mess up every day probably, right? But He is faithful and just to forgive us of our sins. And sin leads to what? Sin leads to death. A very, very important doctrine. We're all going to get there someday unless the rapture happens and takes us home. And what happens when 3,000 people die at 911 in New York City a few years ago? What do people do when something like this happens? They shake their fist at God. They blame God. They say, we don't believe in you, God, but we really hate you. That doesn't make sense, does it? Well, actually it does. Romans 1 says God has created us with the knowledge of Him. What do people do? They suppress the truth. They put God back here. Now they see the results of a loving Creator God through a microscope, through nature. And what do? They just close their eyes to it because they want to go their own way back to Genesis chapter 3.